So my daughter got married over the weekend, and if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I have two daughters. They're both getting married this year. Just had one get married this past weekend, and then the other one's getting married in the fall. And when you think about it, a wedding is one of the hardest things to get through on the carnivore diet because of all the temptation, all the different foods, and so forth. And so I wanted to share my experience today with you a little bit, let you know how it went, how I've been doing post wedding. And even if you don't have a wedding, if you don't have like a big event coming up, I think my experience might be beneficial for you to hear. So I'm going to go through everything and just put it out there and we'll go from there. All right. So we'll start with Friday. Friday was the rehearsal. And I have to say it didn't really hit me yet on Friday that I would be walking my daughter, my baby girl, down the aisle on Saturday. We actually uh went and did, we did the thing where I walk her down the aisle and stuff and part of the rehearsal, and that went fine. And then we had the rehearsal dinner. Now, the rehearsal dinner was set up by the groom's parents, and they got Olive Garden catered in. And that's not necessarily the best food for a carnivore, but they did have shrimp, sausage, and chicken, which they were like, that those are good things we think you can eat. So that was okay, I guess. Definitely not the cleanest for me. I will say that the sausage didn't really taste that good to me. The chicken didn't taste like good fresh chicken to me. I don't know. Um, Shrimp was good, but it also had like a buttery stuff on it, and it might not have been real butter, might have been other stuff. I don't know. But anyway, so I had that stuff. I stayed away from all the pastas and stuff like that. The bread that they give you, I stayed away from that. And I also didn't have like any sauces, that kind of stuff. And I didn't have the cake that they had as a dessert as part of the thing that they got from Olive Garden. So, Friday worked out pretty well considering for me, right? Then Saturday is the day of the wedding. The way it worked out, so my daughter and I were kind of hidden because it was an outdoor wedding, and we were hidden actually at this manor house, and we when it was time to walk, we'd walk out and then walk down the aisle that way. And so we were there for a good while, and as we got closer, to time, it was kind of starting to hit us. It was really hitting me and realizing like, yeah, this is it. I'm walking my daughter down the aisle. My youngest daughter, as a matter of fact, my older daughter is getting married in the fall. And then we got to walking. And as we're walking, getting close to where the people are seated, I see my older daughter, who is in the wedding, up at the top. And she just was crazy. She had crying and tears running down her eyes, and the makeup and whatever eyeliner, whatever stuff, just smearing down her cheeks and stuff. And that was hard for me. That was tough. So that really made it very emotional. Um, which I already was kind of emotional. And so then I got my daughter up to the the front where she would sit or stand, I guess, with the groom. And that was very emotional for me and everything. And, basically handed her off. So they did the whole ceremony. Ceremony overall went pretty well. And then we did pictures afterwards. And then we got to go over to the hall, which was, I don't know, 100 yards or so from where we were. It was a barn, a big barn that was the hall. And so we went there while, my daughter and her new husband got further pictures and all that kind of stuff. And then we got to them coming in. First, they did their dance, somewhat emotional. Then we did a father daughter dance that ended up being very emotional for me. Um, so definitely a very emotional time, right? So you got the emotions running, all that stuff. I then had to give a toast. That kind of got things even more emotional for me. Um, and so I probably didn't eat as well as I should have because of all that thing, the emotions and all that stuff. I did have, so we had some beef kebab that was just the beef, and chicken kebab that was, just basically the chicken. We had some kielbasa, authentic Polish kielbasa, because my side of the family is Polish. And I did have those things. It was pretty good. Um, but then they actually brought me a piece of cake, and I ended up eating it. So I ate the cake. You know, I did it. Whatever. Um, After the reception and everything, we kind of had like an after party thing. I did have one little bit of drink, some alcohol. First time I've had alcohol in quite a while, well over a year. And so I did have that. And then Sunday, so we stayed overnight at the place, this plantation type of place. And then Sunday we were leaving. We got home. By the time we got home, I was pretty hungry. So I had another piece of cake. And this is how things can really get you very quickly. Within that second day, I was really craving sweets and bad foods that I don't normally eat. And it's just, one of those things where it just was taking over, and I just wanted to eat that stuff. And just from the little bit of slip up, and that's why some people like me need to stay completely away from plant material carbohydrates, right? Carbohydrates from plants. Because if we eat something like that, it just triggers us to eat more of it. So it's kind of like an alcoholic doesn't just have a little bit of alcohol here and there. They need to abstain completely from drinking alcohol, right? So that's kind of how it is for me with carbs. And that's one of the reasons why carnivore is so effective for me, because I completely stay away from it. But I didn't here. So Saturday, Sunday, I did that, right? Monday, I had another piece of cake when I ate. Tuesday, I had another piece of cake. Wednesday, I had another piece of cake. Yes, that is 5 days in a row there of eating cake. So it's now Friday. I'm recording this. I'm finally a day in without eating anything bad. Yes, along with the cake, there probably was a little bit of other stuff. Like maybe I had a little bit of mac and cheese, I think, or something the one day. And not the cleanest. So I'm trying to get myself back on track at this point. It's been about a day just eating beef. I had, matter of fact, I just ate a little bit ago, and I had a steak and a couple of burger patties. Had a little bit of my fermented foods that I tend to eat with it, some kefir, that kind of stuff, some aged cheeses, yogurt, whatever. That is something also that I should point out, that for the last few weeks before this wedding, I have been really good with eating fermented foods at every meal with it. It's just a little bit, right? I kind of dip my meat in with those fermented foods, but every single bite, and the cravings seem to go away. When I got to the wedding, the rehearsal dinner, for instance, on Friday, I didn't have any fermented foods. Saturday, didn't have any fermented foods. Sunday, I didn't have any fermented foods. So I went 3 days without having any type of fermented foods. And I'm telling you, those cravings were getting crazy. And when I have been really strict with eating fermented foods, I didn't really have any cravings. Now, I know part of it was just that I also had cake, which kind of brought on those cravings. But it just kind of goes to show you how fermented foods, with every bite of your meat that you're eating as a carnivore, can really help with the cravings. Really, really help with the cravings. So that's kind of the experience I had. If you're a person that has struggled with different things like that, where you might just have one little piece of something and it brings on crazy cravings, then you're in the same boat as me. And I'm telling you, from my own experiences, even in the past, the best thing is to stay away from those foods. Now, it's really hard when you got a wedding, especially, you come home and you have these foods here that were left over from the wedding, particularly cake and stuff like that. And it's just sitting out, especially if you just had some and you already have the cravings going on. So that can get really tough. But just know you're not alone. I've been doing carnivore for almost 4 years now. I am about a month and a half away from 4 years, and this happened to me. So It's probably set me back a bit. I didn't bring this up, but I'll bring it up now. In terms of weight, I have gained 9 pounds since before we left on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever to go for the wedding. So in just over a week, I've gained 9 pounds. Now I know a lot of that probably has to do with like water weight and stuff like that, but there could very well be some fat that I have added back in, some visceral fat and so forth, maybe some subcutaneous fat that I have added back into my body over this past week. So I've got to get back on track. Um, it's been a good day or so here, about a day and a half now, I guess. I've been kind of getting back on track. I'm going to do some fasts coming up here, 48, 72-hour fast, somewhere in there. I got to make sure I'm back on track good, though, before I do that. I haven't done any exercising. So I was doing, 2 to 3 days a week of sprints, push-ups, that kind of stuff. Have not done any of that in the past week. So I need to get back to that. But I want to make sure that I am back eating good before I really get into that. I want to make sure that I've got eating back to a rhythm for myself and past those cravings before I really start to then worry about doing the exercise again. So that's kind of my experience. Um, I know I missed the last couple of Wednesdays with a live stream that I normally have Wednesdays 8 p.m. Eastern time. I will have one this Wednesday though coming up here in I guess it's 4 or 5 days, whatever. I will be with Coach Julia Edens 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I hope to see y'all then.